there is a moment people rarely talk about. That quiet hesitation between knowing what you want and saying it out loud. A moment where your mind pauses. Your chest tightens just a little. And the simplest choice suddenly feels heavier than it should be. Choosing a meal. Replying to a message. Picking a direction. Saying yes or no. Other people move through decisions like stepping stones. But for some, every choice feels like a doorway. With too many rooms behind it. Too many possibilities. Too many consequences. Indecision is not laziness. It is not confusion. It is not a lack of intelligence. It is a mind that feels the weight of every outcome before the action even begins. Because for people who can't make decisions, the world is not made of choices. It is made of meanings. Meanings they don't want to get wrong. There is a kind of silence that happens inside people who struggle to make decisions. Not the silence of calm, but the silence of a mind suddenly becoming too loud. It begins with something small. A choice someone else would make without thinking. But for you, it doesn't feel small. It feels like a moment you must get right. A moment where your response could shift something. Affect something. Disappoint someone. Or reveal more of you than you're ready to show. So you pause. On the outside, the pause looks simple. A second of stillness. A tiny delay. But inside, the pause stretches. It widens. It fills with questions you never asked for. What if this is the wrong choice? What if I regret it later? What if they expect something else? What if I disappoint someone? What if this says something about me? Your mind begins scanning. Not for the choice itself, but for the meaning behind it. What it represents. What it could change. What it might reveal. And suddenly the moment doesn't feel like a moment. It feels like a weight. People around you see hesitation. But they don't see the storm happening underneath. The calculations. The consequences. The emotional predictions your mind runs. To protect you from even the smallest discomfort. Because for you, decisions aren't decisions. They are possibilities. Rooms you cannot see inside. Paths that might lead somewhere unexpected. Stories you might accidentally rewrite. So you stall. You pause. You wait for the feeling of certainty. That rarely arrives. And in that pause, a quiet truth forms. You're not resisting the choice itself. You're resisting the fear wrapped around it. That is where indecision begins. Not in confusion, but in caution. Not in weakness, but in sensitivity to everything a choice could become. Indecision doesn't appear suddenly in adulthood. It grows quietly, years before you realize what it has become. It often begins in childhood. In spaces where choices felt heavy. Long before you had the language to explain why. Some children grow up in homes where consequences were unpredictable. Where one day a small mistake was ignored. And the next day the same mistake triggered disappointment. Frustration. Silence. Or anger. In a world like that, choosing becomes dangerous. Every decision carries the risk of triggering something unwanted. So the child learns caution. They learn to wait. They learn that choosing too quickly might cost them safety. Others grow up in households where perfection was never demanded, but always expected. Where being good, responsible, or easy to manage became part of their identity. They learned early that their choices were reflections of their worth. A wrong decision didn't just mean a small mistake. It meant they should have known better. Should have been smarter. Should have been more careful. So they learned to examine every choice. as if their value depended on it. Some children grow up around strong personalities, parents, siblings, or authority figures, who always seemed to know what was right. Their opinions were loud, confident, absolute. And the child's voice, in comparison, felt small, felt shaky, felt unnecessary. In an environment like that, it becomes easier to stay quiet than to choose something that might be dismissed. And then there are those who grew up in emotional silence. Homes where feelings weren't spoken, needs weren't expressed, and conflict was avoided, not resolved. Choices in those homes carried weight, because there was no map to follow, no feedback to guide them. The child learned to overthink everything, because no one showed them how to trust themselves. Indecision, at its roots, is not about choices. It is about early environments, where choices felt unsafe, and the mind never forgets what once protected it. The mind of someone who struggles with decisions is not indecisive by accident. It is following a system, a psychological pattern built from years of emotional learning. Inside every human brain, there is a threat detection network, designed to protect you from danger. For most people, it activates only when something genuinely feels risky. But for people who can't make decisions easily, this system activates far earlier, far faster, and far more intensely. Not because the danger is real, but because the mind has learned to treat choices as possible threats. When you face a decision, your brain doesn't see option A or option B. It sees outcomes. It sees shifts. It sees the possibility that one small choice might lead to discomfort, disappointment, or emotional conflict. The brain scans. What might go wrong? What if I regret it later? What if this affects someone else? What if I am misunderstood? What if I choose wrong? To others, this looks like hesitation. But neurologically, it is a survival response. Your mind is running simulations. It plays every possible scenario. Before you take the first step, it predicts reactions, tones, expressions, consequences, even small ones. Overthinkers don't think too much because they want to. Their brain is wired to protect them from emotional pain that once felt too big to handle. And then comes emotional memory. Your mind stores past discomfort, not as events, but as feelings. So every decision you face today is filtered through the emotional echoes of yesterday. A small choice carries the weight of old fears. A tiny decision feels tied to past mistakes. The brain tries to prevent pain by predicting every outcome before it happens. But prediction comes with a cost. The more the mind tries to protect you, the harder choosing becomes. Indecision is not a failure of thought. It is the brain doing its job. A little too intensely, a little too early, and a little too often. If you could look inside the mind of someone who struggles to make decisions, you would not see confusion. You would see conflict. A quiet, constant tug of war between what they want and what they fear. On one side, there is desire, the wish to choose freely, to move forward, to feel certain, to simply pick something without overthinking it. On the other side, there is fear. Fear of choosing wrong. Fear of regret. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of triggering a reaction they can't control. This is the battle no one else sees. You might look calm on the outside, but inside, two voices narrate the moment. One says, "Just decide." The other whispers, "What if this hurts later?" And because both voices feel true, you freeze in the middle. You know you can't stay stuck forever. But moving forward feels risky. And stepping back feels wrong. So you linger in the space between choices, hoping that clarity will find you before consequences do. And then comes the guilt. You feel guilty for hesitating. Guilty for taking too long. Guilty for making simple choices feel complicated. Guilty for disappointing people who want quick answers. But guilt doesn't speed you up. It slows you down even more. Because now, the decision isn't just about the choice. It's about how others will perceive your struggle. The mind resists choosing. Not because it is weak, but because it is tired. Tired of being careful. Tired of anticipating reactions. Tired of carrying the responsibility. Of always making the right choice. This resistance is not laziness. It is self-protection. A shield against emotional consequences that once felt overwhelming. Indecision, at its core, is the conflict between a heart that wants peace and a mind that wants safety. And neither knows how to move without hurting the other. There comes a quiet moment in every overthinker's life, when they stop in the middle of yet another difficult decision. And something feels different. Not easier. Not lighter. Just clearer. It's the moment when you finally step outside your own hesitation and see the pattern for what it truly is. Not a flaw. Not a weakness. But a learned form of protection. You begin to notice that the fear wrapped around your choices did not start here. It started years ago. It came from environments where being wrong had a cost, where mistakes carried weight, where your feelings had to be managed carefully, where choosing freely didn't always feel safe. This realization doesn't solve everything, but it shifts something inside you. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and instead begin asking, "What happened to me that made choices feel heavy?" And that question opens a door you've avoided your whole life. You begin to see how your brain tries to protect you by predicting every possible outcome. How your mind runs ahead of the present moment to shield you from regret. How indecision is not a sign of carelessness, but a sign of caring too much. You start noticing moments where the fear is louder than the choice itself. Moments where your hesitation is not about the decision, but about the meaning you attach to it. And slowly, quietly, something shifts. You begin to separate the choice from the fear behind it. You begin to recognize the difference between danger and discomfort, between instinct and anxiety, between genuine uncertainty and old emotional echoes. Awareness doesn't change your decisions instantly, but it softens the battlefield inside you. It gives you space to breathe between the possibilities. And in that space, the first spark of confidence flickers. Not the confidence to always choose right, but the confidence to no longer fear choosing. Healing for people who struggle with decisions doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't happen in a single moment, or through a sudden burst of confidence. It begins quietly, the same way indecision once began. It starts when you realize that the world will not fall apart if you choose something imperfect, that not every decision is a doorway into something irreversible, that some choices are simply choices, not tests of your worth. For the first time, you begin listening for your own voice. Beneath the layers of fear, caution, and prediction, it's a soft voice. One you've ignored for years, because other voices felt louder. The voices of fear, of old memories, of imagined consequences. But as you grow aware of your patterns, that voice becomes clearer. It says, "What do I want?" Not, "What will keep everyone happy?" Not, "What will make me look responsible?" Not, "What will avoid disappointment?" Healing is not the disappearance of fear. It is learning to choose. Even while fear stands beside you, you begin making small decisions. Without rehearsing every outcome, you choose something simple. Without scanning for hidden danger, you pick a direction. Because it feels right in the moment. Not because it guarantees a perfect future. And with each small choice, your nervous system learns something new. I can choose. And nothing terrible happens. This is how trust is built. Not through force, but through gentle repetition. You learn that your value doesn't depend on choosing perfectly. You learn that mistakes are not evidence of failure, but evidence of being human. You learn that decisions don't define you. Your intentions do. And slowly, your choices begin to feel like self-expression, not self-defense. You stop searching for the right decision and begin searching for the honest one, the one that feels like you. And with that, your decisions stop being burdens and start becoming reflections of a self you're finally beginning to trust. There comes a moment, usually quietly, when you look back at all the choices you once feared and realize something simple, something gentle, something you were too overwhelmed to notice before. You survived every decision you ever made, even the ones that weren't perfect, even the ones that led you somewhere unexpected, even the ones you wished you could redo. Your life did not fall apart because of one small choice. It kept moving, kept unfolding, kept finding its way toward the next moment, and the next moment after that. And somewhere along the way, you grew. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. In the same way you once learned to fear choosing. You grew each time you listened to yourself, when it would have been easier to stay silent. You grew each time you made a decision, without waiting for absolute certainty. You grew each time you let a choice belong to you, instead of your fear. Indecision will still find you sometimes. It will still whisper, still warn, still remind you of the past. But now you know something that changes everything. The fear behind your choices is not a prediction. It is a memory. And memories can be understood. They can be softened. They can be carried without being obeyed. A decision is not a test. It is not a measure of your worth. It is simply a direction. One of many you can take. One that will lead you somewhere new. Somewhere different. Somewhere honest. And as you learn to trust yourself, your choices begin to feel less like risks and more like conversations between who you were and who you are becoming. The truth is gentle. You are not here to choose perfectly. You are here to choose authentically. And that, quietly, is enough. Silent. You grew each time you made a decision, without waiting for absolute certainty. You grew each time you let a choice belong to you, instead of your fear. Indecision will still find you sometimes. It will still whisper, still warn, still remind you of the past. But now you know something that changes everything. The fear behind your choices is not a prediction. It is a memory. And memories can be understood. They can be softened. They can be carried without being obeyed. A decision is not a test. It is not a measure of your worth. It is simply a direction. One of many you can take. One that will lead you somewhere new. Somewhere different. Somewhere honest. And as you learn to trust yourself, your choices begin to feel less like risks and more like conversations between who you were and who you are becoming. The truth is gentle. You are not here to choose perfectly. You are here to choose authentically. And that, quietly, is enough.